You know, our brand strategy is very much rooted in education. It has to be. You know, this is a dog's evolutionary diet. This is what nature decided is best for them.
Yeah.
Kibble is actually, you know, a convenience food and not a health food. Raw feeding aligns with their biological needs.
Yeah. And that is your problem to solve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's food everywhere, but maybe it's not the right kind of food. So you have an awareness problem, or there is an awareness problem about nutrition.
Yep.
And that could probably be said about human food too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. My name is Amy Zalnaridis. I'm the co-founder and chief brand officer of We Feed Raw, and I'm on Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the show. Amy?
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
Good question. I never actually applied for this job. I never really set out to have this job. This was my younger sister, Alyssa's company. And when she passed away from cancer at the end of 2014, my family and I stepped in to keep her vision alive. So I really got involved in this out of an overwhelming sense of duty to keep what she had started going. And not just to keep it going, but to make it as big and as meaningful and as impactful as it could possibly be. So that's still a big part of why I'm here today, but I would say that it's grown into something more too. I am deeply passionate about this, and I believe in this mission wholeheartedly. And I find it deeply gratifying to be able to transform the lives of so many dogs. So it's really, I see it as a gift that my sister left me to have a job that I love and something that I'm excited to wake up and do every day.
Well, we've talked a lot off camera, and we're building this friendship. You know that I have a love for dogs, a special place in my heart for animals, and I'm really glad that we're introduced and we're now collaborating on other things. It's beginning to change my life and improve the lives of my dogs, so
Amazing.
I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Let's go back in the chronology to your sister's original vision. So, like, most of these, you know, amazing ideas and great companies, they're started like in the garage or in your back bedroom. It's a seed of an idea, and it's usually meant to solve a problem that exists in the market. So let's go back there, because I asked that with context. A lot of the people who watch the show, you know, they've got their own little idea.
Yeah.
And they're at different stages of the game. So some of them are, you know, in the trenches. Some of them are just thinking about it. But like, what was the original problem to solve?
Yeah, so I mean, my sister was always an animal lover. We were raised by parents who were big rescuers of animals themselves, and just our entire even extended family. Like, I can't think of anyone on either side of my parents' family who aren't animal lovers. So I think it's just kind of part of our DNA. But my sister grew up to be a big rescuer of dogs herself. So she was always just really interested in helping and saving dogs. And I think really the seed was planted in around 2007. There was a big pet food recall. I don't know if you remember this, but it had to do with contaminated wheat gluten. There was a big manufacturer overseas who was trying to boost the protein levels artificially and put melamine in the wheat gluten, which is like an industrial chemical, sold it to pet food companies. It got into the pet food supply and killed and made sick like thousands of dogs and cats. So it made the news. It was big headlines. And so I think at that point, there was really this shift that hadn't happened before, and people started to think more critically about what they were putting in their dogs' bowls. And so my sister was part of that mind shift. So she started to feed raw. She learned about it. She became an expert at making her own dogs raw meals, started making friends' dogs raw meals, and then their friends' dogs. And the business just kind of grew organically. So by 2009, she and her fiance, Rich, who happened to be a sushi chef at the time, they had this business together, and Rich was making the meals. My sister was sort of the business side of it. And they were living in Austin, Texas, and they delivered these fresh raw meals door to door. And they had a nice growing business.
Yeah. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
You know, that is a huge undertaking.
It really is,
I mean, you're making it sound like, oh, of course, you know, she just started mixing her own raw meals, of course, you know, but like, how do you do that? Like, where did she even start, like, with finding out? Because part of the problem, I think, is like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we talked off camera. I was thinking I was feeding my dogs this great expensive kibble that I resourced and searched and did all the due diligence. I thought, turns out it's just like basically unhealthy processed food.
Yes.
Despite what I found out, but so it's confusing and frustrating because you just, as a consumer, you don't know.
Yep.
And it's hard. So walk me through sort of like, how she started that, how she did the research to find it, and like where you guys ended up right now, because it's not easy.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, there was a lot of DIY raw feeders during that time. I would say in 2009, that was like mostly what it was, right?
Sure.
Like a very, very fringe. But my sister was always really into like health and wellness, and she was, reading the books, and like she really, it's not the diet that she was doing too, and ours still very much today is based on the prey model raw diet. So what dogs were eating in the wild.
They're carnivores.
Roughly 80% muscle meat, 10% organ meat, 10% finely ground bone. So she just got a grinder. She and Rich, also being a sushi chef, had this background.
Yeah.
So they rented like a little space in a chicken manufacturing plant.
There's some intuition there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so they just started doing it that way. I mean, that was really as simple as that. And then, getting the containers and packing it up. And it was still small at the time. So, it was like having, another food business that you would just make in your kitchen or something and deliver it.
But I'm sure it couldn't scale at that point.
Oh, there was so many. It took a long time to get to a place where it was actually a scalable business, even though it was still growing. There were so many things that we were doing they were doing that, weren't scalable. And that wasn't really, she didn't enter into this to, I think the business part of it just sort of presented itself. It was like she was really trying to just help dogs, her own dogs, and then it grew into something else, and then the business opportunity came sort of later.
Yeah.
It's not like she sat down and wrote a business plan. It certainly was not the start of this at all.
Yeah. And honestly, sometimes that's the way it starts, right? Like you start it for yourself, and then friends find out about it, and then the friends want you to do it for them.
Yeah.
And then it continues to spread. And that's sort of how you prove the model out too.
Yeah.
If there's demand for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So they did that, and then from 2009 to 2013, had this nice growing like Austin-based business. Some of the surrounding areas too. And then in 2013, seemingly out of the blue, my sister was 34 years old, beautiful, young, was diagnosed with terminal late-stage colon cancer.
Wow.
So it was just gutting and devastating for all of us. So hard. And so we were all on the East Coast, my family and I. I was living in New York City. My dad was in Maine. My mom was in Massachusetts. So we all decided as a family it would be better for them to be closer to us. So at that point, she moved the business onto a Shopify site where she would then be able to ship nationally.
Gotcha.
So it was for a very sad reason, but it grew the company exponentially because now she had this much broader audience, right, that she could serve.
Yeah.
So
still early though in terms of like direct to consumer. Yes, it was a little bit of necessity.
Yeah.
As the mother of invention, but at the same time, a really smart move, despite it being so early.
Yeah.
In the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so moved to Maine, opened up their own facility. We had production workers there, meat getting delivered, shipping it out using, mainly UPS and FedEx.
Did you have a challenge? How did you think about sourcing and like vetting vendors?
Yeah, so it was always human grade, sourced from USDA, human grade. So same, places that grocery store meat or restaurants, and that was. I mean, I wasn't involved in that at that point, but that I know that they were doing it that way.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that Rich might have even used like a meat broker where they're like finding you the stuff that you need. So you're like, you need beef heart, you need kidney, you need, the raw meaty bones, all of that stuff. So
this might be a strange question. Where do you find these people? Like, you can't just Google that, can you? I mean, maybe you can.
I mean, I think that Rich had already gotten really involved in that in Texas where they were. So he already had the connections and that was.
I can kind of see Texas being a great source for something like that with all the barbecue that's happening there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably on every street corner.
Meat capital,
But maybe not Maine, yeah?
But I mean, I think that's where the broker came in and he could get connected. And then once you have the connections, you have the connections.
Okay.
So that's what they were doing. And then, my sister was so passionate about this business. I mean, she really really cared so much about it. And she worked on this until the last week of her life. I mean, despite a lot of suffering and pain, she's continued to work on this. So when she died, I mean, my family and I were completely devastated, grief-stricken. But it wasn't the type of business that could really be paused and returned to. It was like so hands-on. It was like, if we don't keep, it was either like we decide now that we're going to keep this going or we're going to let it die.
It's a baton pass or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It was like meat was getting delivered. Production workers were showing up. People were relying on this food for their dogs. So we all just, I don't know if it was, you know, part of it, you know, just the grief itself that sort of forced us to jump right in. But my dad came out of retirement to run like the business side of it. Rich went back to managing the production workers. The company couldn't afford to pay me anything at the time, but I went back to New York City where I had a full-time job, and I made this my second job. And I was, you know, it was a lot of work. What
were you doing?
I was working at Kenneth Cole as associate creative director and senior writer. So I stayed there for about 8 years. And
so you have marketing chops?
Definitely, yep. Creative is my background for sure. So one of the first things I did was secure some outside funding. I found an angel investor, and I took a big chunk of that money and I interviewed a bunch of different creative agencies. And I found one in Austin, Texas, funny enough, it wasn't even planned, named Preacher. And we did a rebrand. And I say rebrand, but it was really just creating the brand, because at that point, it had really only been a supplier of raw. Like it didn't have a brand. It had a different name. It didn't have there was nothing cohesive about it. So we worked together for about 6 months with Preacher, very collaborative, and created what We Feed Raw is today. We've iterated on it a bit, but yeah, we created, and I would say that our brand after our product is still one of our best assets. It really gave us credibility. It helped us stand out in a pretty crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
And so did that.
I want to unpack that for a second, but I want to go back to the funding.
Yep.
Funding is always a question mark.
Yeah.
Should we do it? Should we not do it? Bootstrap, go get venture money.
Yeah.
How much did you get? How much did you ask for?
I think at that point...
and up to then, it was all self-funded, bootstrapped?
It was, yes, bootstrapped, yes.
So making sales,
and this is still just a family and friends, like angel investment, not VC, and
that's okay.
I think I can't remember exactly, honestly, because there's so many things have happened since then. But
estimate's fine.
Yeah, it was, I remember that the rebrand exercise, which included a new website, was around $300,000. So.
Okay.
If you remove the website part of it, it's probably for the rebrand itself around $220 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had Preacher kind of do this whole rebrand.
They did, yeah. Amazing job too. Like they really got in there. They loved the idea. They came to Maine. We met with them.
Yeah. Competitive analysis.
Yeah. They talked to all the customers. Found out that really it was awesome, and I'm so happy with what they did. Because they really got it. And I will say at the time, what they did was very, the whole Maine thing, right? Which is a great connotation. Maine it's like Tom's from Maine, Poland Springs from Maine, right? It's like natural, and it worked really well. And I think, we've softened this image since then. It's not so hardcore, because I think it was a little bit alienating over time. It's like, oh yeah, those are the raw feeders. It's like the hunter in his welly boots, like out in the woods with his hunting dog, which is a nice visual. But I think as you try to become a little bit more mainstream, you have the New Yorker that's like, oh, but I live in an apartment. Like, this isn't the food for me. This is for people.
I'm walking the beach with my dogs. It doesn't translate to California.
Right. Yeah, totally. So we have iterated, and it's evolved since then, but that was definitely the initial sort of direction.
Okay, so let me just recap. So you went to friends and family for some investment, some seed money.
Yes.
Which is about $300K. Okay. And you used that money to basically do facelift, rebrand, reposition, and you got a website out of it. And the website is great. It's very intuitive.
Yeah, we've changed. The website's definitely evolved too over the years. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but fundamentally, even today, and I'm sure it's been an evolution, but it's the UI and the UX is great. It's simple, straightforward. Talk about the brand. This show is called Behind the Brand. We talk about branding a lot. I think about what a brand is almost every single day. And I've asked more than like 500 people who come on this podcast what they think a brand is. So first, give me what you think your definition of a brand is, And then let's talk about what you think the We Feed Raw brand is.
Sure. I love this question because I love brand too, and I love talking about it. I heard recently someone say that brand is your essence, and I really thought that hit the nail on the head. It's like brand is, a customer's emotional connection to you. It's how they remember you. It's how they feel about you. I think you can have an amazing product, which we do, but that doesn't automatically give you a brand, right?
Yeah.
The brand is how people trust that product and want to return to that product time and time again.
Yeah.
And that trust can come from customer service, like the way you're commenting on your social content, your reviews, your reputation. So yeah, to me, that's brand in a nutshell.
Yeah, I would co-sign that. I think I think your brand is your reputation. I think it's what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Oh yeah, great.
I think it's a shorthand for who you are. And a brand is distinct. So, my mentor, Seth Godin, one of the best examples he gave me was this, hotel analogy.
Yeah.
He said, close your eyes and, use your ears, all your senses. And if you can imagine if Nike built a hotel, you can sort of imagine what that might look like or smell like or feel like, the amenities that might be there.
Yeah.
Then reverse that and go to your mainstream hotel brands, Marriott, Hilton, if you're in the lobby and you just look down at the carpet, you don't know exactly where you are. And so let's say if Hyatt made a running shoe, can you imagine what that looks like very easily? And you kind of can't. And so it helps you understand, what's distinct and what is not. And if you don't have a distinct brand, if you don't stand for something specifically, if you can't imagine that tied to the product, then you may be in this commodity race. I mean, it's not fun to be there.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it ends up kind of being like a list by price.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's why brand is so important. A lot of people, I think, are stuck in this pay-to-play game. Performance marketing, which is not bad. You can count every single bean that you spend.
Yeah.
The CFOs love it.
Yeah.
But brand is a little bit more, it's a little bit more difficult to measure, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but to me, as head of brand, I think brand is everything.
Brand is everything. Yeah.
And I love, our CEO and CMO also believe that they want to make this a brand-driven company. So I love working here with them. But our brand strategy is very much rooted in education. It has to be. We're going up. We have to educate on that. This is a dog's evolutionary diet. This is what nature decided is best for them.
Yeah.
Kibble is actually, a convenience food and not a health food. Raw feeding aligns with their biological needs.
Yeah. And that is your problem to solve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, there's food everywhere, but maybe it's not the right kind of food. So you have an awareness problem, or there is an awareness problem about nutrition.
Yep.
And that could probably be said about human food too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we very much are going up against the industrial pet food complex, right? So we have to take an education-driven approach.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just a huge part of our strategy, and I think we are leaning into that more even than performance marketing, which a lot of the other big players are doing. But we have to take our customers on this journey with us, so that they understand why this is better. And then, even after feeding the food for a week, they do see that, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your timing is impeccable, especially, you've been doing it for a while, but even now we're in this wellness revolution, right?
Totally.
Where everyone is looking to alternative sources for, let's say, truth and fact.
Yeah.
Right? You have,
it's true.
You have the Andrew Hubermans of the world, or the Dr. Peter Attias, who are, not traditional doctors that are off the beaten path, but they're talking about all the science that matters. I ask my doctor, what he thinks about this, that, or the other, whether it be, cholesterol or triglycerides, and he and she, they don't even mention nutrition.
I know.
It's like, oh, I have a pill for that. It's like, no. Like,
I know.
How do I prevent it?
Oh yeah, totally.
And that's what you're talking about here, just applied to dogs.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same. Yeah. But I think we even have a bigger struggle because there's such a pushback from the conventional vet community, because vets, they aren't nutritionists. And honestly, what they have learned is very much from big pet food. I read recently that 100% of the nutritional information they get is from ultra-processed pet food companies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're bought and paid for.
Yeah, but I don't even think that they necessarily know that all the time, right? It's like what they've learned in school. So we have to combat that. You know, there's a lot of like, where's the proof? Where's the research? It's like, but the science is like, if you look at a dog's anatomy and also like what has been happening in nature for millennia since like this is the way dogs have been eating, you know, since the beginning of time. So
there is a precedence.
Yeah.
It even goes back quite a bit.
Right.
I love that. So then what is the We Feed Raw brand?
Gosh, I would say first and foremost, we're a challenger. You know, we are challenging the status quo, and we're not afraid to do that. We have to be really bold. I would even say that boldness is our secret weapon. So we're not afraid to ruffle a few feathers. I mean, it's even in our name, like We Feed Raw. It's like almost like our rallying cry. I think there's even some other players in the raw space who almost like are hiding that they're raw. It's like, well, like if you find out that we're raw, like that's good, but it's like we're like, no, we want to own this. Like this is the way dogs are supposed to eat. You know, if you have kibble over here, raws over here, there's a lot in between.
Yeah.
But this is the optimal way for dogs to eat. And there's some better alternatives to kibble. You know, there's a lot of these gently cooked brands, but this, we think, is the optimal way to feed your dog. It's really what their bodies are designed to derive their nutrients from.
So now paint a picture with words, and as people are imagining, probably, you know, who knows what they're thinking of when you say raw.
Yeah.
What does it look like? I mean, to me, it looks like if I go to my Trader Joe's and I buy a package of ground beef, kind of looks like that to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of like actually one of our value props, I would say, like the way that our food looks. I mean, a lot of people comment, they're like, this looks like when they first get the box and they unpack it, they're like, this looks like it's straight from the butcher. Like it's bright, it's red, it's fresh.
It looks like a package of ground beef.
Yeah. And
it doesn't look like, you know, when I mentioned raw, I really thought raw.
Like you thought like pieces of the
well, who knows? I mean, you know, like, so back to your sushi, bring it back full circle. I love sushi or sashimi, which is raw fish. And I just think of like a raw slab of meat. It's not that.
No, it's not.
It's been prepared.
It's been prepared, and it's not just ground beef either, even though it looks like that, because it has everything your dog needs and the correct proportions that your dog needs it. So the correct amount of muscle meat with tissue and fat, the organ meat, it's all secreting organ, and the finely ground bone, and some essential vitamins and trace minerals. So it's all complete and balanced. Everything your dog needs to thrive in there. All you have to do is thaw and feed. But it shows up in, I think you get the 16-ounce patties, right? And then you thaw it and feed it. That's literally all you have to do. Some people like to add toppers, which we totally support too. But it's really, you know, as easy as you can make frozen raw.
Yeah. I didn't want to go down that route. First of all, my dogs will literally eat anything.
Okay.
I mean, dangle a piece of pepperoni pizza, it's like over. But I definitely didn't want to start adding toppers or do anything fancy because, you know, I didn't want to chance the fact that they could get kind of picky. But when I opened the package, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised at the delivery. Sometimes I will admit I do forget to pick up the food at the store, you know, and it's like, so it's convenient, dropped right at my doorstep like an Uber Eats. The box was a really good presentation. It had dry ice in it. Don't touch the dry ice, you will burn your hands. Use like a oven mitt or something. But no, the packaging was really nice. The presentation was nice. And then I just transferred all the meat to my freezer, and it was just patties. And so it was all right there. The thing that was not intuitive was, so there seemed to be different, we call them recipes or formulations. So there's like...
different recipes.
So
6.
I got like 3 different recipes in my mix.
Okay.
And I didn't know, like, was there an order of operations? Like first the beef, then the turkey, then the chicken, or like, does it matter?
It doesn't really matter, but that is definitely, we are optimizing the first time buyer unboxing experience, because I think it could be better. And I think that it is intimidating when you first get it, right? Like you're kind of like, wait, what am I? Because especially if you've never fed raw before, and let's be honest, the average consumer isn't really familiar with raw. This is like a totally kind of like extreme.
It was just new, that's all. And you know, as a concerned dog dad, I was like, ooh, I want to do this the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was easy enough to unpackage it, and it's fairly clean too. So because we have 2 dogs, it was easy to partition them, and even having them partially frozen, it's like a meat popsicle, so they enjoy eating it just like that.
Yeah, some dogs really like it like that, or some dogs like it more like thawed closer to room temperature. It really depends on the dog.
I could have just as easily thrown it in the frying pan and heated it up.
Yeah, totally. Some people do that too. They gently sear it. Yeah. I mean, it's...
But I didn't want to get into that habit because sometimes I've got to feed and go. And
yeah, totally. And then it's like extra work that you don't need.
But for the recipes, it doesn't matter what the order is.
So it doesn't matter. But when you're first transitioning, I think it was on the slip of paper, it should have been, which we can make more clear, is that you don't want to introduce too much variety too soon. So we would say like stick with like the same recipe for 3 days in a row rather than going from like turkey to beef to venison or something.
Okay.
So
that might have been in there. I may have just like a typical
don't read.
Skipped it. Yeah. Scanned it.
I know, but we have to address the fact that like most people don't read. So we're going to like have a QR code that then sends you to your account that will show you all of your specific.
Do you have a video for that?
We do have videos, but again, like we're now building out a whole transition page that will be like, you know, one-stop shop, like how to transition with all of it, like how to thaw the food, how to store the food, all of the how to feed the first week and stuff. Yeah.
I might be able. I know a guy who might be able to help you out with the video stuff.
Like
how to.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just saying.
Yeah.
Might be able to help with that. Awesome. Okay, so awareness, education, nutrition, sort of helping people unlearn.
Yes, this is a big, well, you know, it's interesting because we just did a really big survey with our current customers, and we really discovered some interesting, I think we thought our current customer was more fringe than they actually are.
Okay.
So our biggest cohort are people that are feeding 100% raw. But then the second biggest cohort after that are people that are feeding 50% raw and 50% kibble, which was really interesting to us. I think people are just adopting raw in a variety of different ways. You know, they're feeding it as a mixture, they're feeding it as a topper, they're feeding it a few meals a week. And like, we want to support all of that. And industry data actually tells us that 85% of people who are feeding cooked fresh, so cooked frozen, and raw frozen, sort of like lumped together as one category. 85% of those people are only doing it as a partial meal. So they're using it as a topper or feeding partially. So the future is really in this sort of partial raw feeder.
Okay, so a lot more questions. How did you find that out? Did you just simply ask people? Or for market research or what?
Market research from the industry data that's telling us about the 85% that are, you know, doing cooked frozen and raw frozen.
Yeah.
Survey with our current customers to find out more specifically about, you know, how they're feeding, how they feel, like some of the psychographics. For example, like this was an amazing stat, but 97% of our current customers believe that food can be medicine, more powerful medicine than conventional medicine.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
That's great
right?
news.
Yeah, it's great news. I think, like you're saying, it just happens to be, you know, what's happening out in the world right now, but still a pretty amazing stat.
Yeah. Sometimes timing's everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are the fringe? What do they look like?
They're that's basically how this company was founded, right? Like my sister would be considered fringe. It was very extreme. It was all raw or nothing. It was like, you know, very difficult customer. Like, how did you, you know, kill this animal with your own bow and arrow?
Running a shelter on the weekends.
Yeah. It's like very
foster dogging.
And I mean, just very specific about the way the food's prepared. And we still have very high quality standards, but it's just a hard customer to constantly keep happy. And I think it's also, it can be like very severe and draconian, and like, this is like, you know, if you're like, you can never have any kibble in your bowl. And if you do, you're going to kill your dog. So we've learned over the years too, to really soften our approach, because it's tricky. It's like, you have to toe the line, because we have to educate on why kibble isn't an optimal choice for your dog, right? It is ultra processed, packed with highly refined carbs, all of the things, right? But we don't want to shame people for feeding kibble. So we want to educate enough that people can make better decisions, right? We like to say, we're not anti-kibble per se, we're just anti-only kibble for an entire lifetime. So we understand that like raw feeding, if you have a bunch of big dogs in your home, can get cost prohibitive really fast. If you're just feeding some raw, adding some raw to those, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense. From a messaging standpoint, it's like, you know, you're doing well, we can help you do better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's more inclusive instead of exclusive.
Yes.
Like, come into the fold.
Yes.
Let us help you.
Yeah.
Food is fuel.
Yes, exactly.
1 is greater than 0, 2 is greater than 1.
Right.
You know, and you begin to ramp them up instead of like just dropping a bomb and saying,
yeah, like this is,
you're the worst, unless.
I know. And it's really, and still, even with our messaging now and some of our content, like we really have to be careful or we'll get pushback. Like one of the, we did something on our organic social the other day that was like, kibble is a convenience food, not a health food, like a big statement. And probably like, 70% of our followers were supportive, but then 30% were like, this is elitist. This is really like, not fair and it's like, but it is true, right? We're not saying that. It's like, so is McDonald's. So is, it's like eating, dry cereal all the time. Like it can sustain life, but it wasn't designed. It was never designed for your dog's health in mind. It was designed to be a cost-effective, convenient solution, right?
Well, I mean, so how do you feel about that? Because I think you pissed a few people off. Good.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We really stand behind the bold, like we're not going to apologize for like putting the truth out there. I mean, we wouldn't, if we thought kibble were a good option, this company wouldn't exist, right? So, and it's hard to have a company like this. It would be easier to have a kibble company.
Yeah. Well, so this is the lesson that I'm trying to extract here. If you miss it, it's subtle, but like what Amy is saying is, you have to take risks. Like the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is apathy. And you don't care. People just ignore you. If you are ignorable, you don't exist. And so if you decide to have a brand, if you want to build something, you've got to draw a line in the sand, or you've got to have a reputation for something, stand for something, be bold. Otherwise, you're forgettable. So,
exactly.
As difficult as pissing off 30% of your market is, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And I think you should embrace that negativity.
Yeah. And are those people even interested in ever feeding raw to begin with? Because I think most people do appreciate, I mean, you have to be sensitive about the way you're delivering the information for sure. And you have to be careful not to have like some sort of, shaming tone to it. But I do think it is like, I think that it can sound like fear mongering whenever you're sort of challenging indoctrinated beliefs, right? Like, and it's just like, but this is true. Like there's not a scientist on earth that would disagree that kibble is an ultra-processed food. It is an ultra-processed food. We know what ultra-processed foods do to humans.
Yeah.
It's the same for our dogs. And we see, 59% of dogs are obese or overweight. 50% of dogs will get cancer by the age of 10. I think like 6 million dogs are diagnosed with cancer each year. I mean, it's just, this is not, I think we've made it normal, but it doesn't have to be this way. And there's another stat that I heard recently that 63% of the calories consumed in the US by people are coming from ultra-processed foods.
Yeah.
And that's scary. That's really scary. But for the dogs, it's even worse because for most dogs, 100% of their calories is coming from ultra-processed foods. They're never getting a break from it. They're just eating that meal after meal for an entire lifetime.
What you're doing by not shaming or fear-mongering in your words, it's a strategic decision. And I think that there could be a place for that. I think about the example that came to mind was these people that sell mattresses all the time. And it's like, I think I saw an ad the other day. It's like, your bed is full of, bugs and like all of your sweat and it's like, ew, whatever. That's, you could argue that's fear mongering,
right?
But it's also the truth, probably,
right.
Yeah. And so, your decision in your messaging, the severity, to what extreme you want to go to is up to you. And maybe there's room to experiment to see what the threshold for that is, because sometimes you need a little fire lit under your feet to take action.
Yeah.
And again, going back to this, I don't want to make anyone mad.
Yeah.
That's going to get you nowhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
And we have to, because we are like, wake up, people. Like it's really like, that's the position we're in. And there's not a ton of other raw companies out there, or there's not a ton of other players doing what we're doing exactly. So it's kind of like a lot of it is on, we're carrying this burden. And I think you have to wake people up, and you can't wake people up by being like, well, it's sort of better. It's like, guess what your dog's been eating? Like this is like causing this, and this. So
well, it's the same thing if you're not physically fit. It's like, pay now or pay later.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, right? The body keeps the score. So get your ass to the gym or quit eating so many cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Or else you'll be paying the doctor, or you may not be alive very long.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down to that.
And I think, preventative health, it's a hard thing for people to value. I think that we're getting better, but it's like, if you don't see a problem right now, it's fine. Like, my dog's been eating kibble for 4 years. And it's like, the thing about dogs, and our PhD nutritionist that we work with says this too, is like, they're very adaptive creatures. The wrong diet can appear to work for years, but it's like, and he always talks about how he gives lectures. And, one of the questions that someone asked him recently was like, my dog is, 14 and has cancer. What do you think I should be feeding them? And he didn't answer this at the time, but he said, what I wanted to say is this should have been a question you were asking 14 years ago, right? So we really try to get people to understand that it's an investment up front, but it pays off in the long run. And we see that all the time with our customers. We had a lady last week who was telling us that her dog was having seizures once a week. Vets couldn't tell her what was going on. She was just at a loss. She didn't know what else to do. So she decided to throw out all the food she had and all the junky treats, switch to our food, and 6 months have gone by with not a single seizure. And I'm always careful with these stories because I don't want people to think I'm saying that rough eating is going to cure all of your dog's problems.
Right.
But it really can be miraculous for certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much junk in this like ultra processed food that we're feeding our dogs, biologically inappropriate, like highly refined carbs, rendered proteins, plant derived proteins, so many, like up to 60% carbohydrates, highly refined carbohydrates, and foods like dogs don't even have a requirement for carbohydrates. Like, why are we doing this to them?
Yeah.
So I do think that we really try to drive home that message that this is, because it does cost more. It costs way more than, the average pet food.
Talk about that. So is it expensive? What's the meal delivery look like?
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I would say the average size dog in the U.S. is 40 pounds. If you wanted to feed a 40-pound dog a fully raw diet from us, it would be about $65 a week. Okay. So if that feels cost prohibitive, though, to some people, we're very flexible with our subscription. So you could do a 50% raw plan.
$250 a month, basically.
Yeah, for a fully raw. But again, like, you could do it for less, around $100 a month for half. And doing 50% will still make a meaningful difference in your dog's health.
Yeah, like I said, 1 is greater than 0.
Totally. So we really, even if you're doing it as a topper, like, we really want to support all of that. So it does cost more. But like, one of the things that we say is like, we have a very sort of smart, I would say, growth strategy, which is that we're focused on smart, sustainable growth. Like, this is not growth at any cost, which is, we really want to maintain the integrity of our brand and product, which is one of the reasons why we don't ever do deep discounts, or we don't anymore. We dabbled in it for a bit, but we think that deep discounts just devalue the product and undermine the business. And our products cost more for a reason. We use high quality sourcing, USDA human grade meats, responsible production, all in USDA certified facilities. We have a strict safety program, so everything goes through cold pressurization to ensure that it's safe when you get it, and
even
free
the
of
plastics
pathogens.
Don't have BPAs and all
No
that.
BPA. Yeah. We'll work with a PhD nutritionist on an ongoing basis. I mean, the list, and free cold shipping. We're just not willing to compromise on any of those things to have a cheaper product. I love what John Mackey, the founder of Whole Foods, always says, which is just quality costs more.
Yeah.
And we stand behind that too. It's like, and I think the right customers appreciate that, right?
Yeah. There is a market, and we've been on real tight budget before, so there's no shame in easing into it, or maybe it's a future forward-looking thing. But I've noticed a big difference. The dogs have leaned out. They're excited to eat. Well, they're always excited to eat. They're especially excited to eat meat now, versus something else. So I've noticed a change right away.
Do you feel better? Like, because one of the things we've noticed, and even the survey too, was that people, this sort of peace of mind that you were doing what was best for your dog, and I think that's
100%. And so we've had dogs for about 20 years. Our last pair, so Bear and Bella, are litter mates. And I didn't realize this going into the shelter, because our last set of dogs were Labradors. We wanted to seek out Labradors. So we had 2 chocolate labs. They were not related, but they were about a year apart. And they lived each to about 14 years, and then they passed, just a few months from each other. And when they passed, I sobbed. I was just I lost it.
Yeah,
like it was
it's so hard.
It was, but still, I think about it right now, I get a little choked up.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, you know, I want to do it better than I did before. The one thing I didn't know about the rescue dogs is that a dog can have up to 5 fathers.
It's so crazy.
In the same litter.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. It's like wild.
Yeah. And so looking at them, so they're like jet black, and whoever was doing the adoption or whatever was like, oh yeah, the mom is some Labrador. We don't know what the dad is. Yeah. And we looked at the puppies and they looked like Labradors. Yeah. And I took them home, and then of course, a friend gave us the DNA thing. We did that. Yeah. It turns out 0% Labrador.
Oh my gosh.
they're like Staffordshire plus. Yeah. And Bear's like Staffy plus like Boxer, and Bella's Staffy plus Chow. She has a little curly tail.
Yeah. Does she have purple tongue?
Yes. Yeah. She's very much a terrier dog. She likes to root out little small animals, lizards, chase bunnies and squirrels. Bear is more like a lap dog. All he wants to do is just have a hand on me at some point. But no, it does give me peace of mind that I'm doing all I can to make sure they have a high quality of life, that we have a high quality of life together. I mean, we go to Yosemite together, we swim together, Bear especially likes car rides. Bella gets a little car sick, but no, the dogs are everything to us. They're family, and we want to do what we can. Yeah. And so this is fantastic.
Yeah. I think like 76% of pet owners today consider their dogs family members, which is like, really great, but I think it's just still a matter of like educating people on, because there's just like kibble was invented in 1956 and it's dominated the pet food market since then. I think the pet food market is a $35 billion market, and fresh and raw make up about $2 billion of that. So
interesting.
Fastest growing segment, but still a smaller piece of the pie.
When you said that, it made me think of another terrible human food like cornflakes. So they were probably invented about at the same time to basically suck all the energy and life out of humans. Terrible for you.
Yeah, terrible.
Marketed as like the breakfast of champions for all these years.
I know. It's really, but people, when I tell people that kibble was invented in 1956, like a lot of people are surprised by that, because it just seems like, oh, but it's been what dogs have been eating for a really long time, I think the first commercialized dog food was like a dog biscuit that was invented by a businessman in 1860. Then there was like they were canning horse meat in the 1920s and selling that. And then there was, after like mid World War II, all of the metal was going to the war effort. So they had to cut back on the canning. And then the extrusion technology was invented in 1956. And that's when Purina created Purina Dog Chow. And it's really dominated since. What's interesting too is that, people were feeding what they were eating, a lot of like scraps, and like the dogs were still, running outside and scavenging what they could and like eating the leftovers of what humans were eating.
Yeah, if you had a T-bone steak, you'd give the bones to the dog.
Or they'd like fit as a butcher's dog, like they were still eating raw meat scraps too. So when kibble was invented, like their biggest competition was real food that people were feeding as table scraps. So they created all these brilliant marketing campaigns about scaring people away from feeding real food. It was like, if it didn't come from this scientifically formulated, highly tested bag of pellets, like do not feed it to your dog. And we found that has lasted. It's so strong. It's lasted to this day. Like people are always can I feed my dog a blueberry? Can I feed my dog the chip that just fell on the floor next to, it's like this fear of feeding anything real to your dog.
Yeah.
So
well, my dogs love carrots.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I mean, like any real whole foods. I mean, there's very few things dogs can eat, like chocolate, onions. There's like a handful of things that grapes. But most stuff that we eat, they can eat. But I do want to say too that, there's this like whole humanization trend now, about in pet food, and we're treating dogs like humans. And our whole thing is like, we want to treat dogs, feed dogs like dogs. Like,
I see it as fuel. Food is fuel.
And it's different for them than it is for us. They are facultative carnivores. They will thrive on a raw meat-based diet. They do not have the same digestive systems as us, and they can handle that in ways that we cannot. So yeah.
I want to go back to like the competitive landscape. So do you see like brands like Purina Purina as like the enemy or like the establishment? Or
I mean, it's more, I would just say, I don't know if it's the enemy. I mean, they're out there and they exist, and kibble's always going to be around, right?
Let's call it the establishment, because you know, and maybe it's akin to what I just mentioned, like with General Mills or whoever makes cornflakes these days. You know, Kellogg's.
Yeah.
They're a huge conglomerate, right? And they make a bunch of unhealthy cereal that we shouldn't be eating.
Yes.
Sugary cereal included.
Yeah.
I don't mind saying that. I mean, it's obvious at this point.
Yeah.
But they marketed it as, you know, a healthy, nutritious breakfast for all these years. It was just marketing.
Yeah.
Same thing with Purina, probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's like so many.
They're not going to be on this podcast, so don't worry. I mean,
they might hear it. No,
I can't do it at this point.
Yeah. No. So what's the question?
Well, do you see them as like the establishment, and you're, you know, trying to take down the establishment or help people learn the truth?
I don't know if we're trying to take down the establishment. I think we're trying to open people's eyes. And I think that kibble will always be an option out there. We're not trying to like take that away.
Well, you said challenger brand, so that sort of implies that you're challenging the
I think we are challenging
incumbent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, would I ever feed kibble? No. Like but I think that I don't want to take that away as an option for a lot of people, that it is a convenient option. It is a cost-effective option. You know.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, and I'm trying to get you to say it too, which is like, stick your neck out there and say like they're the establishment. Like,
oh, they are and they dominate the pet food market. I mean, they also own a lot of these ultra-processed pet food companies. Own the vet. I won't name the name, but one of the biggest ultra-processed pet food companies owns like 2,500 vet hospitals here. Like, it's all very connected and
and if you don't know by now, I mean, we live in this system, right, where like everything's a business, and so, you know, a lot of people are having their eyes open now about big pharma and the way the pharma industry owns, you know, the medical industry and how it's all, it's a similar thing. So it's important to understand that we've been marketed to by really smart marketers. I even think about simple stuff like Michelin star restaurants. You know how that started?
No, tell me.
So like the Michelin tire company, back in the day, they wanted to sell more tires. And so they created these little like places with restaurants along the stops where people, and so they would like rate that place and call it like give it a Michelin rating. I mean, these are people that are selling tires, suddenly like realizing they wanted people to stop on the road to be able to market them tires, and so they came up with this whole Michelin system and attached it to food, and now that's, you know, we understand, it's a Michelin star restaurant, it's like the best. But it came from like a freaking tire company.
That's really funny. I didn't know that was the history. Or
like Guinness Book of World Records. They wanted to sell more Guinness beer, and so they came up with this, you know, hey, we're gonna, you know, start to record world records so that we can sell more beer. So when you understand that you've been marketed to, whether that's, you know, with whatever huge pet food brand that you've grown up with as a kid, you have to dig a little deeper, pull back some layers, you know, think more intuitively with a critical mind.
And I think, if anything, that makes me the most sort of mad when it comes to it is just the fear mongering that does come from the industrial pet food complex, including the vets, and like, you know, that it's the number one thing that they'll go to is the bacteria, right? That and first of all, there's many raw companies in the U.S. like us who are selling a safe product. Like we are using, it's called HPP. It's a all natural technology that's used in human food all the time that basically inactivates harmful pathogens.
Listen, you can get food poisoning at Chipotle. It's happened.
But I mean, I think that there's like people, there's a natural fear around raw meat. And so they're like, oh, it's raw. And like, is the dog really supposed to, and is it going to make my family sick? So first of all, dogs can process raw meat and handle bacteria in ways that we cannot, but we still take this extra step. And what's funny is like the sort of conventional vet community always uses that, but if you have companies that are addressing that, then what do you have? Because they really can't go after the nutritional aspect, because it's always going to win on nutrition. Like, how can you say that this fresh, real food isn't better than this, like, you know, shelf-stable, you know, 20 years shelf-stable, highly processed pellet.
Or Twinkie that's, you know, has a shelf life of 30 years. I mean, what we're saying here is to think critically. I mean, I've dropped a hot dog on the barbecue and it's rolled in the dirt. My dog picked it up and ate it.
Yeah.
No stress.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Of course,
you know,
yeah,
they have a different stomach than we
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, final words of advice for people running their own business and brand. Any mistakes that you made? Any hindsight's 2020 kind of stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, we made every day is a different mistake, but no, I think that what are some big ones? I would say that we learned a lot from the influencer journey. You know, working with influencers, I think that a lot of it was trial and error. Like we really partner with our influencers to. It's not just to send you a box of food and then like try it and then like it's over in a week. Like we work with everyone for a minimum of 3 months and like hope usually longer. We want it to be authentic. So we want to have your dog experience the benefits and you to see the benefits and then be able to talk about it. But what we found is sometimes like, you know, we've been enticed by like the bigger influencers that might have millions of followers. And if that doesn't always translate to meaningful sales for us. And sometimes it's like the mid-level ones that have a deeper connection with their followers that actually move the needle for us more. Because I think the bigger ones, they can blast your brand out there, but if they don't have a highly engaged audience that trusts them fully,
right,
it just doesn't work for our type of product. So that's something that we've learned. We've also learned about, you know, I touched on this, but deep discounts, like you have all of these other, you know, big pet food players that are really, that's a big acquisition strategy is deep discounts, even free boxes sometimes. And it just doesn't serve us well. It's just, we will get a better customer on a 20% off discount than a 40 or 50. Those 40 and 50% off customers are not sticky and they're just tire kickers and they're not really interested. So we also just have to tell the story that this costs more for a reason. And I don't think when you do deep discounts, it works. And then another one I'm thinking we learned is, we've invested in customer service from the beginning and we have never cheaped out on customer service. And that has also really served us well. It's like all of our reviews are, you know, the product is amazing and the customer service is like, it's real reps that feed our food, that are passionate about this. You know, we're going through the hurricane season right now. Like this week, everyone got a text message, you know, in Florida, what do you want us to do with your box? Do you want us to ship it to a different location? Hold it for you? I mean, we're just very hands-on, and I think that has really been a huge asset for us.
I mean, we were just sitting back, you know, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. You know, tracking my roots, where I came from.